Several years ago, I realized that I was a relatively unhealthy person. I ate a lot of bad food. I didn't exercise and I smoked cigarettes. I smoked a lot of cigarettes. And as a result, I could see that I was aging really relatively quickly. I was overweight, bad posture. I didn't have the same amount of energy that I used to have just a few years ago. And that's when I decided that it was time for a sea change. And to start, I focused on my diet, and wherever possible, I exchanged the sugary processed foods that I'd been eating for much healthier whole foods. And so for breakfast, I'd eat oatmeal, yogurt, fruits, rather than the pastries and donuts that I was accustomed to. For lunch, I'd bring bring a lunch to work rather than go out to lunch with colleagues and eat whatever type of fried fare that I had grown accustomed to eating. And for dinner, I started to cook, and I talked about that before with this group about developing a passion for cooking. And so that was really great. And every now and then I'd slip and I'd fall off the wagon and I'd have a double quarter pounder with cheese or some type of stuffed crust pizza or some other junk food. But I also had long periods of time where, I'd eat really very healthy, and I realized with my diet is just about persistence and sticking to it. And after that, I changed my focus to making sure exercise was a priority. And in high school, I'd run cross country and track, and I'd maintain at least some type of workout routine into my mid 20s. But by my 30s, I'd exercise was almost non-existent in my life. And to reestablish a routine, I returned to running, and I started out with, a short distance every other day or so. And after a bit, I turned into longer and longer runs and greater frequency and greater distances. And eventually on Sundays, I was running, 10, 12, 14 miles, and I was considering a half marathon and something of the sort. And I never did a half marathon, but that's not the point. Um, Eventually, I traded those long distance runs in for some strength training and some running still, but less, and or some type of cardio, and eventually joined a gym. And then a couple of years ago, and had the birth of my daughter, and realized that it might have to forego the gym membership. I was concerned about falling out of that routine, and invested in some home gym equipment, and that's worked out really great. And just like my diet, there's times when we fail and fail to exercise regularly, but there are also, like the diet, long periods of time where you do exercise almost every single day. And so that's been really great. But the biggest thing was I knew I had to stop smoking, and that had fact that I had smoked was really an embarrassment to me, especially as I grew older, and became, went deeper into my career. It was really an embarrassment. And it turned out, it was something I picked up when I was younger and hanging out with friends, and almost by accident and stuck. And like, better diet or health or more exercise, it was really hard to quit. And, I tried time and time again. And sometimes there was a couple weeks would pass, or even a few months, but inevitably I'd pick it back up. But it was until I noticed that with each passing attempt that I smoked fewer and fewer cigarettes, and I found that as really encouraging, and that gave me an encouragement to continue to try. And eventually I did stop. And so I think all of these things, and what I've come to notice is, to realize and understand, is that with building a better, healthier life, that persistence is really key, whether that's, a better diet, exercise, or dropping a bad habit. The only real failure is to not try. Thank you.
Thank you, ScottE. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'm waiting for the wine speech, ScottE.
It's coming.